All right, just tell me when we're going live or whatever. All right, welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. And tonight is a very special show. Because this is our first time without Artemis, right? So it's going to be a mess. But we have our new, our new and improved engineer, Silver, here. So we'll see what we can do. So tonight, I guess the big thing to talk about, right, is the changes that CCP Rise talked about over the weekend, the Halloween event, right?
I fixed myself, by the way, stream. You should be able to hear me now, yeah?
Get this sound.
Yes, okay.
There we go.
The rookie engineer is going good. All right, go ahead, Ron. Sorry.
Nice. No, you're fine. You're fine. So tonight's just going to be me and Silver. We're going to talk about the changes and the kind of ramifications of those, and I don't know, some of the interesting things about that, right? How you doing, Silver?
Yeah, I'm doing well, man. I'm sorry I didn't get to Vegas. I did 2 Eve meets this year, and I couldn't justify a third one, but a lot of things are talked about. I feel like I missed a lot. And the guys that were there said they had a good time, so
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I didn't see like a ton of pictures like I was expecting in the beginning, but then when I saw Matterall doing the Sunday show where like he was having all the guests coming in, I immediately regretted not going because that looks like so fun, right? Like there were people there that I haven't met before, but I've seen in game so many times, right? Like Wind Spirits. Like I used to see that guy every morning, and he's the founder of Fraternity. I would see him every morning in Entosis. He was in his Phantasm. I'd be in my Magus, and we'd fight. Like so, it would have. I would have really gotten a kick out of being able to meet them. But it looked like fun, and we had some great interviews. Matterall did some great interviews and stuff. So I don't know. Are you going to go? You're going to. Are you going to go to San Diego, and then are you going to FanFest?
I'm definitely going to plan to go to FanFest in Iceland. I went last year and it was fantastic, so I'd like to go back. I don't know about San Diego. I was really looking forward to trying to get to a Vegas, but we'll see how it goes. Because Fed Up has a meet every year too now, so I have to kind of pick and choose where I go. I think for Eve, but definitely FanFest.
Yeah. Right on. All right. Well, I guess let's go ahead and start with the changes. So, Booshes. I mean, what can you say about Booshes except that they're insane, right? So, and it's funny too because it's such an interesting mechanic and it's so cool, but it takes someone a couple of years and of the skill to be able to organize 250 people anchored up and being able to hop around. It's just it's pretty crazy. So that's going to be limited to 25 ships per boosh, which I personally love, right? So I love the numbers thing because the numbers thing doesn't affect smaller gangs, right? I think I'm a fan. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really good change actually. It's sort of a nerf to the massive power of Stuka Fleet, right? Um, and Bush in general was pretty abused, right? Like all kinds of different comps really anchored around the Bush ability. And that mechanic, like Ravens, there's all kinds of things you can do with it, and it's super powerful. But here, I think it adds a little bit more gameplay, a little bit more counter gameplay.
Yeah, I agree. And I was talking about this, and there was another FC that said that it's kind of a buff for defensive action because one of the big problems with using a boost now is if you go in the middle, of a Muninn fleet, you're going to take 100 of them with you, right? If they're all anchored up or whatever. But now it's only 25, so it's a little bit more manageable. So I don't know. That was an interesting defensive take. I know, there's several FCs that are pretty upset about it, but I think I think it's good. And I think, the other avenue that it sort of opens up for is, one of the things I was thinking about was like Star Wars and how they had the wings, right? So imagine like three wings of bombers, and each of those have their own set, right? And they are booshing each other and they're kind of hopping all over. So I don't know. We'll see, but I'm really happy with that one.
Yeah, me too. Our group was a little bit worried when we heard that there was going to be a nerf, and they sort of said during the keynote there that wait for the roundtable, and I was like, no, I need to know now what that nerf was because as for a small gang group, it's an extremely powerful tool, right? Enables us to get in and out of situations quite easily, and dart in and out. Like we kind of used them with Nagas, like sniper Nagas, and boosh around. So we were a little bit worried that maybe there was going to be like a distance nerf or some sort of massive cooldown nerf, but I'm okay with the way this one turned out.
What? So the next thing that CCB Rise was sort of hinting at was Minmatar guns getting some sort of buff or something, and he didn't really go into detail about it, but just kind of throwing it out as one of those things. I think one of the big problems that this is just me personally, but one of the problems that I have with Minmatar guns or autocannons in general is they're so short range. It's almost comical, right? That the optimal is like 1.5 kilometers, and the fall off is like 3.5. I mean, if they're that close, like you have bigger problems, right? Like it's just it's such short range that it makes them almost unusable unless you're sort of going for the kind of grapple bumping, which is I don't know, it's kind of kind of an irritating thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the AC. So it'll put a lot of battleships that maybe aren't so valuable back on the map a little bit. Like maybe a Tempest does a little bit better now because you're right. Part of the problem was projection, right? And especially in nullsec, you kind of need that range dictation, that range projection. That's just why like things like the Nightmare XL, artillery Macarials, autocannon Macarials work too. They have very good range, but that's sort of the thing that's keeping. And even on the did they say about medium guns too? Like is it just large guns or?
I don't think they specified. I think they were just kind of throwing that out there.
Yeah, because what I was thinking too is the Hurricane, right? The autocannon Hurricane is really fun and can be a nice ship to play with, but not with autocannons. It's kind of hard to make it work, against the other options that you have, against rail guns, against missile boats. All these things are just better.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was watching Sutonia stream. I think it was last week, and he was doing autocannon hurricanes. But that guy can frickin'
Yeah.
do whatever. He could do target painter herons and still get kills like in nullsec. But like I have issues with autocannons and hurricanes, like because the main problem is to get that close. Like they've already had to make a few mistakes, right? Because and especially like with nano boys, right? They just burn off. They're not going to hang out and wait. And to get within 5 or 6K, you have to web, right? You have to scram. Like so, that's three mid slots, right? Just right there. So I don't know. I think they need a little something. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree.
So the next change was bosons, right? So bosons, the SIG is increasing to 10,000 from 2,000. Um, and if you don't know what that means, so basically in the formula for, uh, I guess, so balancing large weapons versus small ships, the signature of the weapon is important in the sense of how it applies damage. So a much larger weapon does not apply very well to a smaller ship. But now that they're moving it up to 10,000, it'll do 20% of the damage that it did before. So I've been known to boson rat every now and then. So it'll be interesting to see, like, you know right now small ships die in 2 or 3 ticks, right, on a boson. So if that's 20%, right, so they're going to die in 10 ticks, 12 ticks. I don't know. I'm eager to kind of test out, right, the signature difference.
Yeah, so I didn't really think of that, Ron. Like the lonely guys down here that don't Titan rat. I didn't think of the effect on ratting. Was that you think that was the intended shot at it, or was it more that the boson is a pretty powerful tool in PvP?
I think that it's just a really powerful tool in PvP, right? So one of the main things around the boson is setting up a boson trap, right? So like there's a couple of mechanics that can work together that really shine, and one of those is, now that you have that kind of spare utility high slot on the boat on the Titan, what you can do is you can put a cloak there, right? So you go to the gate and you go above the gate about 10 kilometers and you cloak up in a Titan, right? So you're cloaked up there, and then you have a saber sitting at 0 on the gate. And as soon as they come into the system, the saber starts bubbling, right? And if they land, like 20K off the gate, and they start burning towards the gate, you uncloak and you boson, and it kills them in 2 or 3, right? So the interesting thing about this, reducing the damage to about 20%, is ships will be able to survive a boson, like no joke. Like
Right.
you could get a perfect boson and they could probably burn out, right?
Yeah, and that's sort of the the way I was starting to think that that would work, right? That it was a nerf to that kind of application.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think that if you've kind of roamed around in certain people's space, there's like a Titan setup with a boson, in every couple of gates, right? Because they're in safety, right? They're under their super umbrella, so they just boson random ships just for fun, right? So with this, you're going to have to probably get 10, 12 ticks on a small ship to kill it. So it's interesting right now for boson ratting. The reduction in damage is will throw off the timing, right? So the timing is critical on a boson rat. So when you kill all the rats except for one, and then as soon as you kill that last rat on the first wave, you start the boson, and then it ends at with the last wave half dead, and then you kill that last wave, and then you're off. Well, with this, it won't kill them as fast, right? So there might be 2 or 3 waves left. So I don't know. I'll have to test it when it gets on Sissy, but it's going to slow down the ticks. So that
Yeah,
1% or whatever.
the 1% of the 1% is going to be
Yeah, yeah,
hurt.
yeah. It's like estate taxes on your seventh mansion is like whoa, that's going to be crazy.
So you think this is a good change though, or a bad change? Like I was
Um,
a little bit I was a little bit surprised that they were targeting the Titan weapon. To be honest, it never occurred to me that that was like OP or needed to work. Because it's fairly
you,
challenging to get a first of all Titan ratting is pretty risky to begin with, and then if you're using it offensively, it's pretty tricky to get yourself lined up and to get it off in a good skilled way. right? I mean, you can't. So like,
Yeah, I think the thing is that, for someone like me who boson rats maybe 2 hours a week, maybe three tops, and that's like on a crazy week. Maybe 3 hours every 2 weeks is like more kind of what I do. For someone like me, it's not a big deal, right? But if someone was boson ratting in the safety of their umbrella and they were doing it all day, 12 hours a day, that's insane, right? That's insane because the ticks are like 110 to 120, right? So you're talking like 330 every hour. So I would imagine that, the guys see the numbers and they're like, yeah, this right here is a little excessive. We need to dial this down a little bit,
yeah, but that's not much more than a super can get, right?
right?
So like,
It's easier though.
is it easier? I
Yeah.
figure I think a super is a little bit less risky though. No, I guess if you're talking about under an umbrella, maybe not. But like for me,
Yeah.
I wouldn't dare rat in my super, but I mean my Titan, but I would in my super.
Yeah. I mean, with a super, you have fighter management and it's just
Yeah,
more
you
difficult,
gotta be
right?
paying
It's more,
attention.
yeah, aligning. And if you're not, and if the fighters stop, then they die. It's a lot more going on. With, a Titan, it's much easier, much simpler. It's very simple and you can have a conversation while you're doing it and that kind of stuff.
True.
All right. So the other big one, and so I haven't actually gotten to fly one since the buff, but I have played around with some of them in fitting. But the new combat scepters, right? The howling scepters or whatever they called them.
Yeah.
Um, so the Tyrannus, the one that I fit up, that's insane. 369 DPS from a little Tyrannus with drones. Like it's just now. Granted, that's at 2K, right? But that's
Yeah.
an insane amount of DPS, man.
So let's talk about that though. Like,
Yep.
so the problem with the combat scepter is that once it lost its interdiction nullification, it really became not much better or better at all to a navy frigate, say the Comet, right? So still, like, yeah, we get a damage buff, and yeah, the number is looking better, but other than maybe a little bit of speed, how is it? Why would you fly that over a navy Comet? Let's say, like,
Um, Show of hands, who's never flown a Navy Comet? Yeah, this guy.
well, maybe you should, and then you'd put that Rannis right back in the shitter where it belongs. Like, 'cause, to be honest, I don't think that's what they needed. A damage buff is not what they needed because you got Navy and pirate frigates that are comparable in cost, comparable comparable in speed, and I don't think it's enough to put them into a category where, yeah, I want to fly that Rannis because it fills this role. Like, isn't the point of a combat inti to be an anti-tackle interceptor, right? Like, it wants to kill its brother, the tackle version of it. Um, so I was sort of thinking maybe it needed like a web bonus or some sort of scram bonus, something that would allow it to easily catch or more easily catch a pesky stiletto that's holding you down, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? So, well, maybe the fits will evolve, right? Because I put it in chat, but I just kind of threw that one together, right? Like a standard sort of interceptor fit, with no rep or anything, just pure damage. And I think cold or whatever, it's going like 3,700. I don't know. It is interesting though to think that it is a anti-interceptor, right? That is kind of interesting rather than like a small gang, right?
Yeah, I think a small gang you're better off in Navy Comets, especially for the cost, because you're gonna get comparable DPS, a little bit slower, but tank, right? Yeah, I don't see how this puts you above any one of those ships yet. Glass
What's a
cannon, I'd
Navy
be like,
Comet go for?
What is it, like 12 mil probably for the hull or something?
Oh,
Yeah, they're cheap, man. And it gets comparable DPS, a good amount of tank. I mean, I cut my teeth on comets, right? Like, I had so many kills in a comet for a while, and then we always talked about like, oh, we should do a Ranistrom, and even when they were interdict or nullified, besides the Sov kind of thing that they were abused for, you kind of still want to be in a frigate, a normal Navy frigate over them. So I'm not sure this puts it back on the map as a tool that somebody would actually use. It looked fun though.
yeah, it was pretty crazy DPS from that little thing.
Somebody in chat said
Um,
maybe an AB bonus. Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
oh, right, yeah. Um, and then another thing that they kind of hinted at was I think something everyone's been waiting on is a Muninn nerf, right? Some sort of
Yeah.
thing to kind of hit that out of the meta. And I don't know if I had to nerf it, like if and if they told me like get rid of this thing out of the meta with one stat, the stat that I would remove is the speed. I'd get rid of like 30% of the speed. It'll be out of the meta in two shakes of a lamb's tail, man.
Yeah, 30% would be a heavy, heavy nerf. But yeah, I mean, part of the problem with the Muninn is a couple of things. One, the gun platform, right? The artillery gun platform is so good. Like, medium artilleries are really good. They project, they hit hard. And it's the same sort of problem the Machariel has always had. The Machariel is OP not because it's a Machariel, but because of the gun that you can use, right? But combine that with the ability to not be able to hold these things down ever. They're gonna just burn right out of bubbles, like they don't even care. They'll just blap interceptors. You can't hold them down, right? So they can engage and disengage at will, like you said. So maybe a hefty speed nerf or some sort of sig play or something.
Yeah, but if the Munins get nerfed, I mean, I already know what's going to be the next meta, right? Don't I mean, it's going to be Eagles, right? Like AB Eagles or something.
Yeah, probably. The ADC is just so good, man. The assault damage control is so good, even on the assault frigates. Like, you know, we've been playing around with Kiki fleets, and I like them, but they're not as good as a Retribution gang because of that ADC and the SIG bonus you get with an MWD and stuff. Like those things, even in the assault cruiser, is what makes them so good. So I expect maybe that they'll probably nerf like something with the power grid and make it a little bit more challenging to fit those guns, probably, and maybe combine with a speed nerf or one of the two. But yeah, if somebody will just switch to maybe Eagles. Eagles though aren't as fast as Muninn, right? We've learned that a couple
Yeah.
times.
Well, I mean, the main problem with Eagles is you need this. You need a number, right? You have to hit this, critical mass before you would field them, right? So without that mass, then they're second rate. But if you can get 120, then you're sitting pretty.
Yeah, as railgun boats usually go. Like Ferox kind of need a certain amount of them to do
Oh
any.
God, that Ferox still haunts me, man. From all the high set crap we did with those, Jesus.
Yeah, yeah.
And then so really quick, so the way of sort of diminishing returns, right, on the modules and on attributes that affect or modules that affect a specific attribute and how each one affects it less. They go from the top, the best, to the worst. So um, apparently, trig ships, have been getting some weird damage numbers, and they fixed it because the ramp up was actually being included in that diminishing returns. So
Yeah, it was
they
like
fixed
treating
that,
it as like each cycle is another damage mod, right?
right?
So that means we're going to see
Yeah,
bigger numbers out of trig ships?
yeah. They said it's about 3%. It's about 3%, and they're going to take a look after that. But I mean, a full ramp up like is
Because that's
you
what they
know,
need, more damage.
very difficult. Yeah, well, they
Yeah,
do. They do. They're
I mean, look at the damage that wormholers do with these things. The Iki Tursa, they've been like ravaging supers and Rorquals. Rorquals stand no chance against an Iki gang. Like you got that 5 minute panic, and then you're just dead because of all the utility these things pack, right? Like with newts and everything. So
yeah, an inner hell has been roaming around with that icky gang, and like if that comes up on Intel,
just
like
stock up.
immediately supers log in, like immediately. There's no
Yeah,
joke. Like it's go time
they are my
because these guys are
heroes.
good.
They are
Those guys
good.
are so good, man. I really like them.
I don't know. If it's. I guess it's a good change. I mean, it's better to be clean about the mechanic, right? So that people can understand why they're not seeing, like, because Eve nerds, right? They're doing the math in their head and they're expecting a certain number at the end of the ramp up, and they're not getting it. So making the mechanic clean and understandable is good, even if it means even more DPS out of these monster ships.
And I tried an Icky Tursa in a tier 5. I think it was like a Firestorm or whatever the hell it was. But I kept dying like over and over because the ramp up is so slow in the beginning. And I even tried the new mid grade Mimesa implants on Sissy. Like I just couldn't complete it in time. The ramp up
Yeah,
was just killing me.
the implant might have hurt you, right? Because it
Yeah,
increases the top damage, but you ramp up slower to that damage.
right.
Drex, that's why like I go back and forth in my head about what's better for a roaming gang ship. The Drekovic, has lower damage cap but ramps up a little bit quicker and easier to fit those utilities. But the Iki has that assault damage control, which is fantastic, and the Sig bonus. So it's a tough call between which ship to use there.
Yeah, and you almost kind of are wanting like I think the Nurgle like needs a little bit of fitting room or something because for the Nurgle to be viable, man, it's so expensive. It's like 600 mil, right? Just to make it viable because you have to dead space the mods just to get them in there. So I don't know. I think, maybe the Nurgle's fitting room needs to be loosened up a little bit, right? I don't know.
Yeah, needs something, maybe a low slot even.
So the next thing, right? So assault frigates. Assault frigates getting a speed reduction, like 10% across the board. And the one thing, as well as a little bit tighter fitting. And they gave out some numbers for like the Jaguar and such and such. I mean, the Ramjag and these others, 10% speed is not going to hurt. I don't think. This is not going to hurt them that much.
Probably not.
I
Not in
mean,
the
the
way they're
fitting
used.
will.
Like,
Yeah,
you think about what a ramjag is doing, right? It's trying, in most cases, at least in nullsec combat, it's going after the anchor. And the anchor is rarely going at full speed anyway because they're trying to keep their fleet together. So 10% off the top, not really going to nerf that gameplay. But yeah, I agree. If they kick the crap out of the fitting, then part of the problem with the ramjag is its unbelievable tank, right? That active tank bonus it gets.
yeah, and it's the only one that gets that boost bonus, right? So honestly, I never really thought about it that much until I saw Bjorn B streaming one day, and he was trying to get rid of some Jags, and I just remember like he was just going on and on about how oppressive they were, and he was talking about the bonus and this and that, and then I really sort of kind of started taking notice of how insane they are, right? In the sense that, especially, you can do the double ancillary and it can just tank for days, right? And then you have the ADC. Like it's just, it's a very, very powerful tackle. And on top of that, the damn thing is, fast as hell, right? Like, 5, 6K. So Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I think it is good to tone those down a little bit, and we'll see.
Yeah, because like I mentioned before, I we tried to like Fed Up's tried to experiment a few times with destroyer gangs and maybe cruiser gangs, but both of those classes are outclassed by the assault frigate right now, pretty hard, right? You want to be in retributions, you don't want to be in kikis. They're fun, and kikis can do a lot of damage to capital ships and bigger ships, but you don't want to fight a retro gang in your kiki gang. That's not going to work, right? And
Right.
the assault frigate engagement profile is so huge. Like, they need to like dial it back a little for sure. I think it's a good move.
Yeah. I mean, and when there's only two interceptors that I always call for, right? And I either call for Jags or Instalocks, right? Other Everything else is second rate to those two. So an Instalock if you're on a gate camp or you're trying to surprise someone, and then the Jags are just heavy hitters. They'll tackle whatever you need tackled.
For sure.
And then, so the next one is big, really big, very, very excited. Um, the Triglavian dreadnought, man. That's going to be baller.
Yeah. Oh
I'm pretty
boy.
excited, dude.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think people have been calling for a Trig Dread or a Trig capital ship of some kind for a while. It seems natural that they'd put out a Dread because the Trig signature thing is their weapon, right? So you don't want a Trig carrier; that'd be kind of boring. But a Dread is interesting.
Wait, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean kind of boring?
Yeah.
Let's
What are
not,
you gonna?
let's not get crazy. Let's not get crazy.
Well, yeah, CCP. We still want a carrier, but what were we gonna? The bonuses on the carrier would be weird, right? What you want is something with a gun, that gun platform. And I like what Rise said. To be expected, it's going to be OP and ridiculous, right? So I foresee structure bashes with these things. If they're anything like regular trig ships, they could come with a lot of utility. So like I'm hoping that you can't like throw two capital newts on this thing and a gun and just like newt the shit out of a Rourke yourself or a super and just burn it down. That could be kind of scary.
Well, the so when I just kind of was looking at the stats, right? So the big stat that I saw, which kind of jumped out at me, is 100-kilometer engagement range, right? So currently, there's only one dread that can do that, and that's the Rev with Scorch. And we use Revs as well as Titans to kill inhibs, right? Drop them at 105, kill the inhibs. Drop a Titan, kill the inhibs, etc. And with the Trig Dread being able to do that, hit out to, let's say if it can hit out to 120, that's perfect, right? That's perfect. Now, the real kind of question comes, how much is it going to cost, right? Is it worth dropping that, right? So, like, and let me give you an example. So today, Pando in it came, and they brought a Goku fleet, um, and I dropped a Titan, a Haw, and a Fax, right? And I know this was yesterday. Yeah, yeah, I think it was
Well,
yesterday.
he was around today
And
too, so.
yeah, yeah, I know. I get it confused. Like he's here every day, sometimes twice a day, so I forget. So yeah, and we lost that Haw, right? So, and we lost the Haw because he sieged, and they just were able to shoot through the reps, right, with that Goku fleet. So what's interesting though is if it can fire out to 110, is it going to be worth dropping one of those, right? Or is it just going to be, the gangbuster, right? So, I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards it'll just be gangs, right? It'll be in a group of 5 or 6, because if it's able to siege, right, and you can't rep through the sieges, then you're just going to need a mass of them, right? You're going to need, 5 or 10 of them, and then you start thinking about like, well, how much is that, right? So somebody said, and I forget where they saw it, but they said something about the BPC or something was 400 mil on top of the normal cost. So if and it has that red stuff in it, it's going to be, I don't know. I'm guessing probably around 5 bill, right? 6 bill.
Yeah, and that's what's good about it. And I don't really mind that the trig ships are a little bit OP because they cost so much, right? The red loot balances it so well. It's too expensive to make a mainline doctrine. So they fall into these little like niche things that you do with them, right? And I think the Dread will be a lot like that. And you can't forget about the Phoenix though, Ron, too, right? The Phoenix with cruise missiles can hit out far beyond 100. Iron Armada did this a lot. They called them Coast Guards, right? You get a bunch of Dreads to commit, siege up, and then drop Coast Guard cruise Phoenixes at range and then kill them all, right? So I do think that this is going to be like a gangbuster kind of Dread. I think it'd be really good at killing Rorquals. Like today, the quickest way to kill a Rorqual these days I've seen is drop like 2 or 3 Dreads and like an Archon with a full rack of capital newts, and the thing just dies. Like if these things can do it on their own without the Archon, that's pretty crazy. Obviously, it's going to be a great structure basher. There's a popular strategy now. You put like an active rev on like a Fortizar and just sit there and tank the fort and RF it. I bet you do a really good job at that too. Um, but it's definitely interesting. And I'm not worried about it being OP yet. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah. I mean, well, so I enjoy that they are a little OP, because they are so expensive.
I agree.
Because if they weren't, no one would own the damn things. Like I wouldn't buy something, that's more expensive that only gave me the same. So I enjoy that they're a little bit more expensive. I think, so we use cruise Phoenixes as well, right? So we call them B-52s,
Yeah.
and we use them. We use like 3 or 4 at a time, to reinforce Fortizars and such like that at like 300, 250 or whatever. So the bad thing about like the Phoenix, right, is the damage, the time that it takes for the damage to apply, and that can be critical, right? Like
Sure.
especially like on an inhib, with the inhib, with a Titan, I can take it down, in like 4 cycles, 5 cycles, and that's it, and it's done. They want to drop another one, done. That one's done too. Um, one of the problems with the drop yesterday was, I thought that, you know, I wasn't sure about the tracking, right? Like, because they were doing, some tracking disruption and this and that. I wasn't sure how effective it would be, or damping, or any of this kind of crap. So, the Hall was like a backup, or not a Hall. Yeah, the Hall Rev was a backup, but you know, we killed their Dread too, so it kind of evened out. I don't
Yes.
know. It's interesting, and I'm excited to get a new Dread, especially a really long range one. That'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, new tools. Somebody in chat said, would the cost of a trig dread at 5 to 6 bill be too prohibitive for me to license my guys to use willy nilly? I don't really. We don't really police kill boards. Like if somebody had the money to buy that thing and tried to use it and it died, I wouldn't be upset about it. We do try and encourage our capital group to be smart about what they're doing and make the right decisions. But if somebody got the money and bought one and wanted to try and kill an enemy Rourke with it or something, and he wound up losing it, well, good try.
Well, I guess the real question is, would you SRP it, right? And if so, what would you SRP it for?
I would not SRP that whole thing. No.
Oh, well, okay, so that changes your answer. Oh yeah, no, you could fly the thing, but you're not getting SRP, so that's a whole different ball game.
Well, a smaller alliance like myself, I can't be SRPing 6 billion ships, and my guys know that, right? So if you're
Yeah,
buying that, it's not going to be doctrine, right? Our doctrine is Rev for dread bombs and things like that. But if you go outside doctrine and you're using that ship and you want to use it, they know that they're using it without expecting full SRP. That's for sure.
yeah. It's funny. It reminds me of sort of like the SRP for a Titan or faction Titan, right? So a faction Titan gets SRP'd for a normal Titan. So,
Yeah. So
would the Trig Dread like be SRP'd at like the Rev Hull? You know what I mean? Rev Hull plus fittings kind of thing.
I would say probably, right? Because even Test is not going to probably indoctrinate that ship, right? Because it's not sustainable as a doctrine. It's a niche thing. It's maybe a SIG would do it. Like maybe DKS would come up with something and they would choose to SRP it or something. But yeah,
Yeah. As I'm trying to nano my third Titan. Yeah. So it could be something like that.
yeah. Damn, a lot of changes. You got another big one on your list there, Ron. Yeah, I've lost Ron here.
How about now?
Gotcha.
Oh, that was on my end, dude. That
I
was
was
on
like,
my end.
you made the rookie engineer start panicking. I'm like, what button did I hit? Holy shit! What? I got like this 14
That
million
was
screens open. Oh boy.
that was on my end. So I have Synergy, right? That I use to for my mouse to go between my computers, and I bumped it with my arm, and it went to the other computer. So then the keyboard started working over there. All right. So yeah, that was my end. All right. So Ansiblexes, right? So my first question is, so Ansiblex jump bridges, right? Ansiblex Sino jammers? Question mark.
That's my and beacons.
Well, it's a trifecta of awesome then, for real.
Because
So
those aren't Ansiblexes, right? Like the jammer is a Tenebrex, right?
yeah.
So like how come those things aren't specifically mentioned here? Because the Ansiblex jump gate is not the problem, right, Ron?
Well, so I think it's not a problem for you and me, right? It's not our problem. But what it is, it's a loss of an opportunity for others to be able to camp it, right?
Yeah.
So, as an example, our, like on DP, I think it's like 225 off of the Keepstar. If anyone wants to camp that, like we've got a Keepstar Doomsday that will just eat them up, right? Every 5 minutes, boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom.
I've lost half a fleet to a Doomsday camping Ansiblex. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, it's a loss of opportunity with that. So so imagine, a small gang, right? So and I'm a fan of small gangs, like, and when I say small, I mean like less than 50, right? Or less than 40 people. So let's say you want to bring 25 of your friends, right? And you want to come down to our staging and you want to get a fight, right? So your options are very limited in that. So like, what are you going to do? Hit a structure? These kinds of things. Well, if you want to camp, the Ansiplex, well, we're just going to doomsday you. So moving them out of range of a structure, I think is super cool. I think it offers that. It offers the also tactically, right? So one thing that I enjoyed doing was hitting jump gates before big fights, right? If I have a big fight coming up over here and their staging is over here, I'm going to hit those two jump bridges, right? All I have to do is reinforce them. I don't have to kill them. Just reinforce them, and then they're non-operational for the big fight. So it throws a lot of different things up in the air because if you want to keep them, then you're going to have to defend them, right? You're going to have to undock and you're going to have to defend them in some way. So I like it, but I mean, I've already talked about Sino jammers and how they are like the literal devil. So getting those things off of keep stars is, oh, don't even like. It's just. I already feel like I'm getting too much. I already feel like it's Christmas. Like I'm getting too many presents now.
No, you're right though. These are very good changes, and you're right. It does open up some gameplay that wasn't there before.
Yeah, the war just ended though. Right? Like
I
two
know.
months ago,
I
like
know. Like
two
this
months
is
ago, maybe a little. I'm trying to work with you here.
well, maybe the boys in the north now that are skirmishing will get some added gameplay out of it for sure. Because yeah, that war dragged on quite a bit because it was so hard to attack those new structures.
Yeah, and so the last sort of thing about that is so Sutonia posted about the grandfathering, right? So should people be grandfathered in? And I have to, say that I don't think they should be, man. I don't think that we all of our stuff should be grandfathered in. So number one, um, we don't need an advantage, period, right? Um, and number two, like we don't deserve an advantage. Just because we were able to plan it first doesn't mean we should have a permanently, advantageous kind of position. I don't know. I just think that maybe it's too difficult or something, or if they gave like free unanchoring, maybe unanchor in 12 hours for one day so we could just move them all. Or if they told us now, right, and we could start moving things now. Because I just, I don't know. I don't think that we should get an advantage. What do you think?
No, totally not. I think the rules should apply to everyone. And yes, it's a logistical nightmare for us to take on all our shit and move it out, but like you said, this one should not be a chaos change, right? This one should be like this is going to be implemented in a month or in the next month so that you have time to move your stuff out a little at a time. And then I think if you do it that way, it's more than fair. And then everyone's on the same platform.
Yeah, and I asked Dunk to come on, but I don't think he was able to get out of work soon enough. But it is a logistical nightmare, and it is going to be a lot of work. But just to keep everything fair, I think that's I don't know. I don't think we should be grandfathered, but that's just me.
I agree.
So one of the things that I enjoyed about his talk was he was I don't know if he's going to pay for this down the road, but like when you start talking about things that are on the table, right? When you start thinking about these are the possible things that we're going to be looking at in the next few months or something, damn well there's somebody writing all this crap down that's putting dates on it, putting calendar events to remind people about it so they can, post about it every 3 days or 4 days. But I enjoyed a lot of them. And then one of the things in particular, like I've gotten a lot of questions about, but so low power structures, right? Um, so how do you feel about like Citadel spamming and low power structures?
Yeah, I think it's been a problem a long time that it's too easy to spam down structures. And it dilutes the whole quality of gameplay that Citadel can be because it's too easy to replace and spam, for sure.
Yeah. What do you think about removing citadels, right? So they don't do anything with them, so they're low power and they're everywhere. And in particular, I'm thinking of those bastards down in Catch, right, with hundreds and hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Like,
So you brought up something on your stream that I saw the other day, where you felt like if the structure was sitting there in low power for too long, that it would somehow degrade. And that sort of goes in hand with another change that somebody told me that they would like to see, um, to also combat time zone tanking. So you got a couple problems, right? You can spam the shit out of them. You can put them directly into your time zone, and there's often not a lot of things your enemy could do about that if they're in the opposite time zone. So what if they're sit there in low power and they decay over time? Maybe they lose a bit of armor. And also, like, what if you put the thing into armor reinforcement and then you do it multiple times? It loses armor every time, so it gets quicker to reinforce every time, and you can't really fully repair it. Something like that to make it a little bit easier to clear these things out. You know, I kind of liked your idea.
Yeah, I think that they're very easy to put down. We did it, right? Citadel spamming, and they're very easy to put down. And you just have those two timers that you have to worry about, the initial drop timer, which they probably won't be aware of, and then the anchor timer, right? And if you watch that anchor timer, if you form heavy for that anchor timer, it's going down, right? Or it's getting anchored. So, but my thing is, so you do that, and now you have a structure, what, forever? Like,
Yeah, like
for at least 8 days, right? Like, it's just, I think that, if a structure degraded over time, that the longer you didn't turn it on or the longer it didn't have fuel, it just slowly deteriorated, right? And until, if you haven't touched it in, let's say, 120 days, or 150 days, 5 months, if you haven't touched it, it should just be like a one shot, one kill, right? Now, I still think that it should have, all of the normal asset safety and all that. Like, I don't want the people that have put their stuff in there to suffer because some guy went AFK and he was the only guy who had roles. But I do think that they should be easier to kill, and you should just be able to take 15 or 20 dreads, in a system, and just be able to clear house in like 3 or 4 hours and just be done with all of them.
do you think that systems or constellations should be limited to how many citadels of a particular type can even exist in a region or constellation or system?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, and I think Rise actually mentioned it or something. The thing about that is, I really think it should be something with ADM. And if the hostile ADM is 6, right, you can put down 2 or 1 or something like that. And the lower the ADM is, the more you can put down, right? Something that has to do with ADM or activity or something, because they're they're easy to spam right now. They're hard to get rid of. It's just it's an ongoing issue, right? And so, like, one issue I'm thinking about is, there's a bunch of structures out in Catch and all that, and um, the people that have put them there allow docking for everyone outside of, the people that live there, right? So just to harass them. And so if you fight another group there, an enemy group, right? And they'll have docking rights. So what does that mean? If they have docking rights, then they can just asset safety everything and death clone home. So they don't even have to leave, right?
Yeah. What
I don't
about
know.
on the
It just
defensive
sucks.
side? What about like your home system? Should you be limited to how many keep stars you can spam in a region or constellation? Like, should you be able to put up
Yeah.
5 keep stars in a system?
You know, I think what's interesting, what's an interesting thought around stuff like that is, if you have more than one keep star in a system, and like, I think we should also state this is like such an edge case. Like, what is it? Maybe goons? Like, they're the only people. I mean, I think that, like, keep stars could be linked somehow in their timers, right? So if you have two keep stars in a system and you ref one of them, both of them should be refed, right? I mean, there needs to be some, I don't know, some sort of mechanism or something that allows you to do a massive amount of damage to several different structures. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is or whatever, but I don't know. But I don't think there should. If you have a high ADM, then I don't think you should have like any sort of limitations, because I remember one of the original sort of design thoughts around that was they did want a lot of structures to make it seem, like your capital was alive or something, right? So if you have like ADM 5 or 6, like I don't think there should really be a limitation, as much as if the ADM goes down, maybe something happens to smaller structures or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, the spam problem is not just a null sec issue, right? I mean, it gets spammed in high sec and in low sec as well. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what the continued iteration on Citadels are, because I feel like they could be so much more emergent, but they're not, because they're one, dirt cheap. Anyone and their mother can spam right-throughs or Astra houses, and you can put them everywhere. Even the Fortizar is expendable. Like, why is the Fortizar so expendable? Like, no one even cares. Fortizars hold the risk gauge and dock capitals, so that's an added, like, yeah, I should pay attention to that. But you could throw down Fortizars pretty easily too.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think the Citadel spamming is there's an issue with that. So the show we did, what, 2 weeks ago, um, faction warfare, right? So and Rise was talking about how they've almost tackled faction warfare 3 or 4 times, right? And they've almost gotten there, and then something else kind of takes its place, because it just never hits on that priority list. And what else was interesting is he mentioned the missions, right? So, and he said that the easy fix on that would just be to reduce the payouts on the missions. And I think if we asked the faction warfare guys, they would say yes to that.
Ah, with everything in faction warfare, because it's in low sec and because there are multiple groups that are even outside of faction warfare interacting with it, reducing the payout for missions, yes, it fixes some of the things the guys that were on 2 weeks ago were griping about, but that is a main source of income for a faction warfare pilot, right? When I was in faction warfare, the only ISK I got was from running missions. So if you nerf that, you're nerfing that gameplay. So yes, you're sort of discouraging the farmers from seeing it as an income source, but you're kicking the faction warfare pilots down a notch too. And faction warfare already has a income ceiling to it, which is why a lot of people move out into wormholes to make bigger money, or out to nullsec to make bigger money. Um, I think it's another one of those things that's easy to do. CCP can knock down those numbers really quick, but it's not elegant enough. It's not what they need. It won't fix the problem that they're describing.
So, after that episode, I was thinking about it a little bit. And, one of the things that I thought would be interesting is, what if, I mean, but see, this can still be farmed, right? It can still be farmed. But what if, you got some sort of credit or whatever for actually killing enemy pilots, right? Multiple numbers and different names and this and that. And with that sort of credit, then you were able to do missions. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
like
it
you
would
rank,
have to be a
you
combat
rank
pilot.
up. Yeah, like you sort of rank up, and then at a certain rank, you're open to run faction warfare missions. I sort of like that. Yeah, that's a good road to explore.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, because one of the problems is, I guess the lame asses just kind of show up and they didn't take part in the war or whatever. They're just there to farm the LP and whatnot. And yeah, I don't know. So there's probably something around that, and I'm sure it can be gamed somehow. But I don't know. Faction warfare is on the table.
Which is good.
Um, so the next thing is the one that I got the most uh, questions about, right? The most concern for,
Uh huh.
anti-capital bombs. Like,
So Ron is like the
uh,
most of the list, and then we get to this one, and he's like, "No, my Titan! Damn you,
so,
Pando!"
so, so first off, I like how he immediately said, "Not for the bomber hull, right? Not for that chassis." And I completely agree with that. I completely agree because first off, bombers are ridiculously OP, right? They're just so stupid. Um, the I don't understand why that hull hasn't been split up. All right, so and when I say split up, I mean
No, I know what you
why not
mean.
have a bomber like bomb delivery hull, and then a torpedo hull, right? Like just some sort of split up situation like the T3s or something. I don't know. Like it's just so silly that some of the most powerful things about that hull, like you don't even use. You can throw a cloak on it, you can warp cloak, you instantly lock, you can go through wormholes because it's so small, you can project a lot of damage. I mean, even torpedoes, the range on torpedoes could stand for a little bit of a little change, a little dial down. So I think it would be cool. Now, splitting up the hulls, to be honest, would not affect most of the fleets that I see today, right? Like a Goku fleet, right? It wouldn't affect that because it wouldn't even be using like the stealth portion of it, right? That would be a different hull. So I don't know. There's some way that they could split that up. So when they were talking about the anti-capital bombs, I love that they said it's not for the bombers because they got a lot going for them. Awesome.
Thank God, yeah.
Some new sort of hull, and that I love, right? Like because automatically I think of Star Wars and I think of that heavy bomber, right? That was dropping the bombs. So some sort of call, maybe like a battle cruiser or something
Yeah,
big.
I was thinking cruiser because the cruiser hull lacks roll a lot. Like, maybe a cruiser hull could do it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I just think that would be cool. I mean, it would suck for me, right? But I think it would be cool for the game, right? I think it would be interesting, and I think that if you do, have like a cruiser hull or a battle cruiser hull that is a bomb delivery mechanism, I think that would just be cool, man. And the other thing that I really liked about it was the small damage radius, like a 1 kilometer damage radius. So you have to be pinpoint precision, but if you're really
Yeah,
good at aiming, and
if
let's
you
say you have
hit.
5 of them, shit's gonna die. Like I like that. That's cool. That's
Well,
cool. Like,
yeah, I mean, it harkens to like naval warfare, right? Old school
yep,
torpedoes. Like, yeah, I mean,
yes,
it's hard to aim that thing, but if you hit, it was GG, right?
I agree, dude. I agree. And so I think I like it. I like that, and I like that it might be difficult to get it behind enemy lines and that sort of thing. I just like the whole sort of thing of an anti-capital sort of bomb delivery, right? Like I think that's cool. And they said that it's 300K damage, so 300K is going to be what, about six would kill a Rorqual, right around in there.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it'd be cool though.
It will be cool. I agree. I think it's another gameplay opened up to, there are a lot of people in Eve that are looking for that special role. I have a lot of people in Fed Up like, I don't like just flying a Muninn and a 100 Muninn fleet. What can I do that I can make an impact other than just pressing F1 when the FC says? So having like a target be spotted and then like, able to kill it with this like super special tactic is kind of cool.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And especially now, with the Boosh nerf, I think, having little wings of anti-capital bombers like would just be that would just be cool. Like, be having to try to deal with that. That'd just be cool. So I'm down. I think that they're still going to work on it and figure out what hull or whatever. But I'm down. I think it's cool. So they were talking about like, did you catch the trig structure affecting the systems thing?
No,
And
I
they were
missed that part. Yeah, see, EXO was telling me about it, but. They were talking about that thing that's appearing on stars. Is that the structure that they're talking about?
I'll be
The
honest.
stellar accelerators.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like when they start talking about the anti-capital bombs, I think my eyes glazed over as I was like
Did you
thinking about
almost
what the hell
pass
they're
out?
talking about, and like and then they were like talking about like the trig structures. I think this is something around when they're talking about like this faction warfare sort of thing where you have to pick a race or you pick the Triglavians or something, and there's something about a structure. Maybe that, and that's kind of like where they get to the weather effects, And I think this kind of harkens back to where we talk about local, right, and blackout. And I'm still a fan of, maybe local is tied to ADMs or something. Like I still think something like that is cool, right? Like because that would add sort of these like clear boundaries between this is occupied space and this is unoccupied space. And the unoccupied space, even though it might have a flag, right? It might have SOV, but it's unoccupied, it's unused, therefore there's no local, right? There's no upkeep on it, right? And this kind of goes back to the low power structure, right? If you don't upkeep it or you don't have anything going on in this particular area, you may have your flag there, but now it doesn't have local, that kind of thing. I don't know, might be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I like anything that adds terrain to the map of Eve, right? Which is why I like faction warfare plexes, right? So terrain,
Yeah.
changing environment depending on where you are. Over here is more dangerous because there's local and there's things, but out here on the fringe there's a bit of fog of war. You can maybe move around more stealthily over there, or there's an invasion with this stick on it and it changes the way your ship behaves. Like dynamic terrain on the map is something that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is, so we already have weather effects, right? So we already have that. And the weather effect that I'm thinking of is around incursions, right? So when an incursion happens, there's a weather effect that affects the systems that it's at and around it. You can't light sinos, and it has a new chat channel, and it has all these other little things around it. So we already have that weather effect. So being able to take that and move it around, um, I think that's interesting, right? But it's you can't make it too too dangerous, I guess, like too risky compared to normal because people just won't undock,
Yes, and that's a tough balance I think CCB struggles with all the time. They want to make things dangerous and hard, but you got to balance that against the people's will to just dock up and not do it. Yeah, seriously, like Eve
No, I
players
agree,
are
dude. I
really
agree.
stubborn. Like you saw that in Blackout, man. People were just like, nope, just not doing it. Nope. And no matter what I told them or what I showed them, there were certain people that like, I'm just not logging in until that shit's over. So,
Yeah,
and you see that even with incursions, right? An incursion rolls through your constellation. A lot of people just take the week off and wait for you to run it down and then come back.
yeah, yeah. It's a tricky thing, right? So I think the real way to kind of trick players, um, like it's not it's not making it riskier, right? Like that doesn't trick people, right? So like as an example, right? If I wanted to get like more supers fighting, like more supers dying, right? That kind of thing. The What I would do is I would add some sort of advantage of having that on the field to not having it on the field, right? So that's really where the risk comes in, and that's where people will risk it more, right? Um, Higher risk, higher rewards, right? So as it stands, I'm willing to lose all of my supers and all that, but I want to lose them in a fight, right? Like I want to lose them, something not just drifting off tether or something ridiculous, right? So If there was some sort of interesting mechanic around supers on field and they give some sort of advantage, and then you could have super versus super combat, like I think that'd be awesome, man. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so that was it for the changes and the possibilities that they talked about in Vegas. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add to any of that?
Man, I mean, there was so much talked about in Vegas. Like, I know a lot of people came back and said, "Oh, it was kind of boring." And I'm like, "How?" There's so much coming down the pipe, and honestly, it's encouraging. It's encouraging. I know a lot of people have been complaining about the Age of Chaos and like, where are we going? Is there a direction the game is going? And I think after Vegas, I feel a little bit better. I don't know how about you feel, Ron, but there is pipelines. There's stuff that they're working on. There's a semblance of where the meta, they want to push the meta, right? That seems to be CCP's direction. I want to push the meta. So if we all play under that guise, and take a look at these changes, I think a lot of them are very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think um, that what I always really like is that they're always willing to change things that are kind of diehard or you almost feel like they're set in stone, right? Like Sinos, you know. Um, and I'm always a fan of changing the rules for everyone and making it more difficult. And maybe that's because I'm like a mental masochist or something that the more difficult it is, the the more strategy in the gameplay and the more exciting and the benefits are better. So I always enjoy the complexities that they're adding, to things like that. So I don't know. I mean, I'm a fan of the Sino changes now, right? Like it adds, it's more difficult, and we were just actually talking about this today, but like, before the Sino changes, just about anyone could run the defense fleet, right? Just about anybody. Someone that, moderately skilled, right? As long as they didn't call supers, moderately skilled could, tell the Rorqual to light the Sino and jump in, right? But now it's more difficult, right? With inhibs and ranges and different recons and getting, your beacons bubbled and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm always a fan of the complexities and adding more to it and adding more range.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm super happy, dude. Like, I mean, it's all good stuff.
Yeah, push the meta. That should be what we're all
Oh,
expecting.
so Exxon just PM'd. He said that the new trig structures affecting the systems. He said this is already in the game. The Triglavian stellar accelerators. They appear in foothold systems within invasions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So, so you can't show the screenshots?
No, I've been trying to figure that out. I'm a terrible producer, but I will get better.
Dude, dude, it's your first time, man. Like we have both cameras going. Like mine's a green screen, but that's fine. But we have both cameras going, and there's been no interruptions. So, dude, it's A plus plus in my book, brother. A
Yeah.
plus plus, man.
Next time we'll get your green screen going and we'll show graphics.
It's fine,
It's a
man.
stretch goal. It's a stretch goal.
A stretch goal. All right. So, what I'll do is I'm gonna post the links in chat, right? So that is the new Malagarian skin or whatever it is for the avatar.
Oh yeah, these are cool.
So the Halloween skins, all green, like 15 or 20 holes. Like they kind of remind me of like the old school like Green Goblin, right, from the Batman comics, dude. I think his stuff's cool, man. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's all good. I love all this stuff.
Um,
Your new Icky skin is pretty sick too.
yeah,
Very
there's the
cool.
whole screenshot of all of them. Oh, and then The old time favorite, the headhunter skins, and this is more holes, right? This is more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is more holes. Um, and honestly, like any time that you crash the market on these skin hoarders, because these bastards are the bane of my existence. I love it. And then I was like totally, totally streaming for the Vegas skins, and sure enough, like within like 15 or 20 minutes, some very generous and kind soul hooked me up with a code, and so I got the casino skin for all of them: the Icky, the Nurgle, and the Drager.
Yeah, those are
So
super cool.
sitting pretty, brother, sitting pretty. Like come on, give me the skins.
Super cool.
All right, so the last thing, and I actually didn't write a note about this, but the last thing, I just wanted to throw this out there. Um, I thought this is really interesting. All right, so news, right? So, um, have we talked about Snuffed Out?
We haven't.
What do you think about that?
That's a loaded question, Ron. I have mixed
Oh,
feelings about
I
it,
don't,
right?
I don't know what you mean, sir.
I have mixed feelings about it. In a way, of course, I am gonna feel a little bit selfishly happy about that. I I don't like shitting on groups, but they kind of overfished their watering holes. If they, I can't help but to think if they just didn't force me out completely of the whole region, I might have grown to something that might have given them content or something that was a little bit better than shooting my Fortizar with Titans I couldn't contest. Their oppression I think hurt them in the end. But I do not like to see PvP focus groups break up, and there's been a string of those a lot lately. I don't think many people are leaving the game. I see a lot of people have moved themselves out to different groups, and I think that's good. I also think that Eve having an enemy or having a group that a lot of people hate is healthy, right? You gotta have a bad guy, um, because everyone thinks they're the good guys. I think Snuff was about the only group that kind of admitted that they weren't the good guys. So yeah, mixed feelings, Ron. I think people should take a look at what happened there and like understand that being elite and oppressive can be fun, but the side effect is you wind up sitting in space that has nothing to shoot at anymore.
Yeah, and I personally, I've always been sort of lukewarm about Snuffed. Like I didn't have an opinion either way. Um, you know, but I saw Capri Sun join them, so I knew they were going to die. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so I didn't really feel either way about them. Um, they were like playing the bad guy or whatever, and they're like the low sec, elites or whatever. But from being on TIS, man, and like talking, because you guys force me to talk to faction warfare people all the time. So talking to like faction warfare people and talking to like low sec groups and totally different groups, right? The feeling I always got from them was that Snuffed Out was just like this oppressive force that just took all the moons and just beat the hell out of them at any chance they got, and and were this and that. And then I thought the entire group was like this super toxic like group, but what I've come to realize is actually just like one corp that's
Yeah,
like super
it's not
toxic.
everybody. To be honest,
Yeah,
Haiwanto has always been very respectful to me and
yeah,
our other leaders. Like we've chatted with him, he was never edgy with us. There some of them were, but he was not. So you're right. Not all of them are these edge lords that they kind of get painted like.
yeah. So and that's exactly what I've heard from people, right? So I don't know the guy, but everyone speaks highly, of the leadership of Snuffed Out, and that's all great, but this one corp, um, you know, like is just this super toxic and super edgy group that goes way beyond the limits and this and that. Um, so I just from an outsider looking in, it looks like they are a big null group that was too big for low sec, but they moved into low sec and they just dominated, right? And they just didn't move out of the house, I guess. Like they're like the 23-year-old high school student, right? Like they're staying there because they can beat the hell out of everyone and they're not going to go anywhere. So I a lot of them, just don't want to partake in the like snuffed out thing, but they're still going to play the game and they're still going to enjoy it and still going to do their thing. So, it's all good.
Yeah.
All right. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was, so there was a post on Reddit, and it was this new bro, and like he had this, really bad experience with this high sec corp and blah blah blah. And I posted on there. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm a white knight, and I'm always looking for causes, right? And new bros, protection of new bros, like that's one of my things. So got in touch with him. Well, it turns out he's actually not that great either. But here's the interesting part, right? So PPD, Perimeter Police Department, up in high sec. So what would be cool is what if PPD kind of role played a little bit, and they were like the I don't know, like vigilantes or whatever of high sec, and they would hunt down these high sec kind of sweatshops and just bust them up. I think that's just so cool, dude.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't like high sec, man. So I don't really have a lot of comments on that, but yeah, anything that opens up roles for people to fill. There are all kinds of people in Eve that are looking for maybe not hardcore role play, but a little bit of role play, and and some purpose, right? The beauty of a sandbox is you can do whatever you want, but it also suffers under its own beauty sometimes because you don't have any purpose. Like flying around and ganking that guy and killing this fleet is cool for a while, but what am I accomplishing? So
Right.
if you could turn in a group into that and you feel like you're accomplishing this is your mission, then yeah, that's great. The more groups like that, the better.
All right. So, question from chat: do you think Snuffed is comparable to Pirate, meaning they have grown too big for their pond but refuse to move to larger areas? So, Pirate is not too big for their pond. So,
Yeah,
Pirate and Snuffed Out are completely different.
no.
So, Pirate is like it would be like a softball league that I would be in, like in real life right now, right? Snuffed Out is like a college team
Yeah, or
that's
triple A
playing in high
team or
school.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a AAA team that's playing in the high school division, right? And all of the Major League Baseball teams are like, dude, come on, come on, and they're like, nah, we're good here in the high school league, right? So Pirate, like, honestly, like, I get such a kick out of seeing all the day 4 of Pirates destruction. Everybody war deck them, blah blah blah. And you remember we talked to Pirate months and months ago, right? And they were like, "Hey, you know what? We got it coming, and we're ready." So they formed that like kind of super Voltron Pirate. So I don't know, but Pirate isn't. They're nowhere near Snuffed Out. Snuffed Out was pretty big, man. They pulled off some really great plays and
Yeah.
some hardcore strategy.
Yeah, not to take too much away from them, right? They did overfish low sec and they were very oppressive, but they do have very good notches on their belt. They were very good at what they did. They killed a lot of supers. They messed with people bigger than them a lot of times. So it wasn't all oppression. It just that's what kept making the news, I think.
Yeah. Um. So I think that's all I have, dude. Do you have anything else?
I don't know, man. That was a pretty packed show.
Right. Well, I mean, dude, like it's Halloween, brother.
I know it's a lot to digest, a lot going on, a lot for content creators to grapple with, right? You know, as a leader now, I have to figure out, I do I keep pushing the Muninn? I don't know because I don't know what the nerf's going to be. Do I need to like try to meta and get ahead of it and see what the next fleet comp is going to be? Like, do I push that? There's a lot of things to mull over and keep up on, which is good. I think it's good.
Well, and the other thing, right, is so Tickle's leaving Legacy, and then they're going to be
Yeah,
over there fighting Proby now. So that's another interesting kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. That's actually an interesting development for us because Tickle was sort of that group to our northish, and that was our path into Provi. So we'd go up that way through their jump gates to get content. So if they're going to not be there anymore, that's going to be a little different for us.
Yeah. So they moved out. So they're going to be fighting Proby, I think, just for content or
That's the
whatever.
word
But
on the
they're
street,
they're
yeah.
leaving Legacy. So you might have to go defend Proby. Never know.
Hmm.
Oh, and Star Frontiers um, Corp in Test is moving up north to Tenal. So
Yeah, that's
some
another
other
big
interesting
move.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of things going on outside of all the
Yeah,
craziness that was announced at Vegas. Like, there's gonna be a
I
crazy
agree. I
winter, I
agree.
think. I think
Yeah,
Test wants to take a vacation and like hang out for the winter after the long war, but I don't know. There's so much going on.
man, I know, right? It's interesting, and somebody was just asking me the other day, like, um, you know, what war are we going to start now? And I'm like, whoa, 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 man, we
Like
just got done. Like,
we spent
I
half
just
a
need to get the
year.
damn abyssals going.
Yeah, my wallet's hurting, bro.
Yeah, right.
Spent 6 to 7 months at war. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Cool. Oh, so I didn't mention this, but in the beginning, I kind of glossed over it. But or did I mention it? Artemis um, is the supreme leader of the midweek show, and he is taking the next couple of months off. He's busy time at work and girlfriend and all this kind of good stuff that's happening in his life, and he's going to chill out for a little bit on TIS. So he's going to take off for a couple of months. He'll be back after the holidays, and we are going to try not to burn the house down. That's all.
Yeah.
That's like where the expectation is. If we don't burn the house down, then it's okay.
Yeah, and I'm trying
Oh,
really
dude,
hard.
you know what I completely forgot? New moderation policy on TRS. So there you go. Read up on that. All
Wow.
right. Are you ready to hit the buttons to close it down?
I
Are you
am
ready?
ready to hit the buttons the best of my ability, so go ahead and take us out there, Mr. Ron.
All right. So, guys, thanks for hanging out and thanks for listening. And as always, we appreciate you guys watching and all the new subscriptions and new followers and everything. And thanks for everything. And we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.